Well, good morning. Happy Monday. It is Monday, August 26th, 2024. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it very much. I hope you had a good weekend. It is a beautiful day outside, 73 degrees on the back patio, and a beautiful morning to sit out there, have a cup of coffee, and watch the sunrise. If you haven't had a chance to go outside and take a look at the beautiful morning, it's worth doing very, very much. This is the time of morning that I love very much. In the summertime, it's warmer. I mean, it's nice, but now it's starting to cool off. I know it sounds crazy, but it's starting to cool off in the morning, and so pretty soon it'll be September. It'll be cold every morning, and then it'll be cold and cold, 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 which is fine. Which is fine. I normally walk in the morning in my shorts, but last night I said it's going to be cold because it said 68 degrees, I think, is the overnight low. So I pulled out my sweatpants just in case, but it was 74, 73 right now, or 72. Anyway, it's not that cold out. It's really nice. I hope you had a great weekend. I certainly did. One of those crazy, crazy weeks last week. For some reason, I had scheduled a bunch of meetings on Thursday and Friday of last week. So I spent the weekend getting ready for Sunday, which I don't normally do. I don't want to do that. But had a lot of stuff going on last week. It's the beginning of year stuff, right? And so that was my week last week. And so I didn't really get a chance to spend as much time with the parents and the in-laws and all that as I would have liked to. But this should be an easier week for me, and hopefully that'll happen. Quite amazed by all the green stuff out there. We had such great rains in August that now everything is green. Just beautiful out there. It's I'm looking out here of my window. I've got weeds that are just growing up way too high, and they shouldn't be that high. Actually, I shouldn't have any weeds at all, but you can't stop it. I think my weed person is coming this week, so maybe I can get them to kill some more weeds. Let's see. Let's do birthdays. We don't have any birthday today, so I'm going to close. Oh, we have three tomorrow. Wow, look at that. We got birthdays coming up everywhere. All right, let's see. All right. Yeah, so there was a question about Jehoshaphat with Josephus last year. Oh, okay. All right. There was a historian named Jehoshaphat, but it wasn't at the time period. And Josephus was later. Actually, I have Josephus on my shelf somewhere. Josephus was a Jewish historian. One of the interesting things about Josephus is he wrote about the time of that included the time of Christ, and he has in his book a comment about Jesus that a lot of people think was added later, and but the stuff that was added later, if you take that out and you just leave what remains, it does talk about a Jesus in Nazareth that was killed. So we did a conference. It was a guy named Paul Meyer, who Cindy will know him because she studied under him. He was a Lutheran pastor who taught in Michigan, and he came and did a conference about 20 years ago that I put on while I was at Fountain of Life, and he really had a lot of interesting things to say. But one of the questions that was asked him was about Josephus and Jesus, and he talked about the fact that these scholars got together and took out the stuff of Josephus that didn't include that seemed like it was an addition to Josephus, and but it still talked about Jesus and who he was, and at some point maybe I'll bring up the Josephus quote. Very, very good historian. One of the better historians. There's lots of historians out there, and the cool thing about Paul Myers, he knew all of them, what they said. their history, their time frame, all the things that they would have said that adds richness and depth to scriptures because you get the context of it. And on the unfortunate thing about Paul Meyer is he's now very, very, very old. He doesn't do conferences anymore. I think at the time, I don't even know if he's still alive, but at the time he was, I'm going to say he was probably in his mid 70s when we had him out. So if he is still alive, he's probably in his mid 90s now, which is amazing to think about. All right. Let's see. Let's get into our study. We're in 2 Kings chapter 3. We started reading this last time. Basically, there are the Moabites, and they are paying tribute to Israel, or to Judah, to Israel. They're paying tribute to Israel. And the tribute would have been set up at the time of Solomon. Solomon as the monarchy would have requested tribute from all the different tribes. And the way the tribute worked was that they would grow cows or goats or sheep, and they would send wool or sheep back to the king, Solomon, and it would be each tribe would send something once a month. And so that was how King Solomon was able to maintain his lavish, I wouldn't say lavish lifestyle, but able to retain and keep his kingship. And now a tribute, I thought of tribute as like a tax, but I did some research into tribute. And apparently it's a bit different from a tax in that it was voluntary. The Chinese dynasties saw it as like honoring your father and mother. So the father would be the kingdom, the joined kingdom of Judah and Israel, that entire united kingdom, and that all these other tribes underneath this united kingdom would pay tribute as an offering, as a sign of respect. And there would be some trading rights, although there wasn't a whole lot of trading. There would be, I'm assuming that every year when you would go and give this tribute, you might do some trading and bring some things back. So there is a trading right that goes with it also. And it's different from a tax. A tax, there's an assumption that the kingdom will keep you safe. The tribute, it doesn't appear that there is that type of assumption. The reason why you pay a tribute is maybe they're more powerful, they're older, and you want to have peace with them, and so you give tribute to them. And the people that pay the tributes are called the tributaries. And so that's interesting because we also have streams, and you have tributaries that come into the mainstream. And the mainstream, you want to keep the mainstream healthy by having the tributaries contribute water into the mainstream. And the same thing is true with the tributaries that give tribute to the motherland. And it was an accepted practice, but if you stopped and thought about it, you might say to yourself, what am I getting out of this deal? Other than I'm giving them a tribute. We have a good relationship because of it. We're not going to go to war because of it. They give me a trading partner because of it. But this king of Moab apparently thought, well, why am I doing this? This was set up a long time ago. It's a huge amount. I mean, the tribute is, let's see, he had to pay the king of Israel a tribute of 100,000 lambs and wool of 100,000 rams. And if you think about that, that is a lot for any nation to come up with. And I don't know how much that is per tribe or per family, but basically the king of Moab would have to go to each family and say, okay, on such and such a date, I need these many piles of wool and I need these many rams, and then we're going to somehow ship this. I mean, it's not even like Moab arranges for ship, or it's not like the king of Israel arranges for shipping. It's like Moab has to show up at the door to provide all these tributes, or else there's trouble. So this Joram, who's the son of Ahab, remember Ahab, he was a king for quite a while. Now he has a son named Joram. He looks at this and says, I'm not getting anything. What's in it for me? I'm not getting anything out of this. And so he wants to stop the tribute. So he stops the tribute. And now, after Ahab, the king of Moab, rebelled, so King Joram, who is the king in Israel, goes and tries to get an alliance with Judah to the south. And he goes to Jehoshaphat and says, will you fight a battle with me? The two of us need to go after the Moabites and say, you're not paying your tribute. We need that tribute. And this is, I wanted to say this last time, but I didn't. We were getting close to the end. But this is what happens when you start paying taxes or tributes, is it never stops. And you get this, I don't want to say bloat, but I will say bloat. You have people in the capital city who are living off of this tribute. And you end up with all these people who don't have to do their own raising of lambs and sheep and cutting their own wool. They get this tribute, and so they start to administer this tribute and start to live as kings and queens and as a royal palace. And this was all predicted when Israel said, we want a king. And Samuel said, well, if I give you a king, they're going to take things from you, and they're going to take their men from you, and you're going to fight wars. Kings have to be fed. And are you sure you want to do this? Because the moment you have a king, you now have to pay some sort of tribute to the king for the rest of time. And they said, yes, we want a king. And so he says, fine, I'm going to give you King Saul, who was the first king. And this happens in every government throughout time. We have Washington, D.C. Well, Washington, D.C. lives high on the hog. I'm the people who work in the trenches of government, I don't think they're necessarily living high on the hog. But there are many, many, many in government who just simply exist, and this tribute is given or taxes are given, and they just live off of these taxes. And I'm not entirely sure that we get a lot of benefit from it. And if they might work for a little bit of time, but pretty soon they're done working, and they now have now they hire somebody to replace them, and they just exist in government. And I think there's lots of people like this, and you can't get rid of them. And government continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and all the programs that they manage. Every time a law is passed, you have to hire a whole new department to manage this law. And how many laws are on the books in the United States, and so how many departments of the United States to manage all these laws. And at some level, this is good, but at some level, if it gets too big, then you have people like this king in Moab who's like, why am I paying this money? This doesn't make any sense. And so you get a revolution and resets the government coffers and gets rid of everything, and you have to start over again. And this has happened over and over and over and over again throughout time, throughout all things. We're watching, Jennifer and I are watching a little, it's a mini series, and it's on, I can't remember what show it's on, Apple TV, and it's called Pachinko. And it's following the life of this family. But it's at its root, it's the story of the conflict between Korea and Japan, because Japan became very powerful, and so they sent their people to Korea and they demanded a tribute from the Koreans. And the story is really about this lady who is a young girl. Her father is killed, I think, by the Japanese or because of the Japanese, and the Japanese occupation of Korea. And it's this story just goes on over and over and over again. Now, Korea is kind of independent, and they might be more. North Korea is more aligned with China than they are with Japan. But these alliances and tributes and all that, it's just fascinating to watch and to learn the history. Just absolutely fascinating to watch and learn the history. All right, so that being said, Israel and Judah are joining together, and they're going to fight the Moabites because they're not giving the tribute. That's basically what this story is about. And the king of Israel says to the king of Judah, "How are we going to go?" And the king of Judah says, "Well, we're going to go through Moab. We're going to go through Edom. Moab is on the east side of the Dead Sea." So you have the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, and the Dead Sea. And all of that sets up a barrier from the west to the east. And Moab is on the east side of the Jordan River, on the east side of the Dead Sea. It's actually adjacent to the Dead Sea, but you can't go through the Dead Sea to get there. So you have to go east, northeast over the Jordan River, or you go south where there is no river, but there's a desert. And the desert is more dangerous because there's no water. The Jordan River is an easier path, but you have to get across the Jordan River. And at certain times of the year, the Jordan River is flowing quite nicely, and so it's a little bit more challenging. At other times of the year, it's not flowing, but there's always water. But that would be the expected route if you're going to do an invasion of Moab, would be to the north from the Jordan River. Well, these two decide they're going to go south through Edom, and it's a very, very desert land. I found out, if you've ever seen the historical artifact of Petra with the huge columns carved into the wall, that's all in the land of Edom. And now they're going to go through Edom to fight Moab. And let's see. So that's where we'll pick up the story. By what route shall we attack? Through the desert of Edom, he answered. So verse 9. So the king of Israel set out with the king of Judah and the king of Edom. And after a roundabout march of 7 days, the army had no more water for themselves or for the animals with them. Well, this is not too surprising. It's a desert. And when it's a desert, you got to have some water. And the king of Edom should have known, whether or not there was water in certain places or not. I mean, they're going through his land. It'd be like somebody coming through Casa Grande and saying, "We're going to come through Casa Grande." And you would say to yourself, you would say to the people, "Make sure you bring your bottled water, okay? Because there's not always water at certain times of the year." And so the king of Israel, in verse 10, "What?" exclaimed the king of Israel. "Has the Lord called us 3 kings together only to deliver us into the hands of Moab?" But Jehoshaphat asked, "Is there no prophet of the Lord here through whom we may inquire of the Lord?" So this is Judah, Jehoshaphat. He's like, "Listen, whenever we run into problems like this in the past, we've always asked God, what should we do? Where do we find water?" And there's been times in our past when God has actually provided water. So let's ask God. And remember, Judah is more aligned with God than Israel. Israel is not, they've gone off the deep end. An officer of the king of Israel answered, "Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here. He used to pour water on the hands of Elijah." Jehoshaphat said, "The word of the Lord is with him." So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said to the king of Israel, "Why do you want to involve me? Go to the prophets of your father and the prophets of your mother." Now we have to remember, Elisha is in tune with Yahweh, but nowhere in Edom or Israel is there any king that has ever thought about Yahweh. I mean, that just hasn't happened. At least Israel has tried to remain true, right, to the God of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but not these guys. It'd be like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to describe this. You come into, um, yeah, I mean, I'm drawing a blank as far as a really good analogy, but he's offended. It's like we only seek God when we need him. And our gods aren't powerful enough, but we know that your God is, so we're going to ask your God. And Elisha's like, don't ask me, go ask your own gods. You can't just expect me on demand to go to Yahweh and say, oh, by the way, the kings and the kingdoms that have ignored you for hundreds of years now need you, and so they're asking for your help. It doesn't work that way. If you want God to be in your life, he's either in your life or he's not in your life. He's either a part of your kingdom and you follow him or you don't. But this is the human condition, right? Many, 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 many people only go to God in the bad times. I honestly think that this came out of youth worship, which was just a profound thing. Some of these youth, these high school kids, I can't remember what prompted the discussion, but basically one of the youth said, "Well, you shouldn't go to God just in the bad times. You should praise Him for the good things also." And this is true. It is so true. If you have a relationship with God in the good times, then when the bad times happen, you still have that relationship, and you know that you have the opportunity to go to God and ask for His help. And if you don't see the beauty of God in the good times, you're not going to see the help of God in the bad times. It's just the way it is. And I honestly think that this is why people spiral downward. Because if you're not praising God in the good times, when the bad times happen, you're maybe afraid to go seek God's help. You're afraid, you don't have that relationship, so you don't even think about going to God in the bad times. And so you live your life in this land of just never having a relationship with God. And that's no way to live a life. It truly isn't. But if you wake up every day and you thank God for the blessings of the day, and you're with Him in prayer, and you seek Him in your life, then when the bad times happen, it's not as if you're changing anything. You're just saying, oh, by the way, I've got this going on in my life. Will you deal with it, or will you help me deal with it? And you put it in God's hands and you go on with your life because you know you have a relationship with God. And if you only go to God in the bad times, there are many, many times when you won't go to God in the bad times. So they come to Elisha and they say, we need God's help. And Elisha is like, don't involve me. You got your own prophets. Go to your own prophets and involve them. But no, the king of Israel answered, because it was the Lord who called us 3 kings together to deliver us into the hands of Moab. Elisha said, as surely as the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, if I did not have respect for the presence of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, I would not pay any attention to you, but now bring me a harpist. So earlier, it was Elisha and the spring that was foul, and he put salt in the spring. He asked for a bowl. And now they're going through the land of the Edomites, and he asks for a harpist. It seems like such a non sequitur to me. It'd be like saying, yeah, bring me a fig leaf. And it's like, what does that have to do with water? I mean, I could see a jug or a jar or a basin or soap or something like that. Yeah, bring me a harpist. Oh my goodness. That seems like a very, very strange thing to ask for. But it's Elisha. And so Elisha asks for a harpist. And the question is, will they get through the land of Edom? Will the harpist help? And I guess we'll have to wait until next time to figure that out. All right, so let us close in prayer. Gracious God, thank you for the blessings of a new day and continue to fill us with your love and joy. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I saw some activity over here. Good morning to all you. Yes, he's 94 and still alive. He and his wife, Joni, led our Lutheran student group at Western Michigan University, as well as being pastor. Really fun and delightful person, which was interesting since he was also a history professor and author. Yes. And I think he is a huge gift to the church because he's a history professor, but he's a history of Christian history. And he's written tons of books. One of my favorite books was called A Skeleton in God's Closet, which is a story about how they find the skeleton of Jesus. And there's a big, huge brouhaha about that. And very, very interesting book, thought-provoking book. But it talks about, it's a little bit end times-ish, what it'll be like when people start to be evil. Anyway, yes, David played the harp, absolutely. And maybe they're throwing back to David to get a harpist. David would play the harp for King Saul to calm his nerves, and that was a beautiful thing. All right, so I think we'll end it there, and let's see. Yeah, it's time to end. So I'd like to thank you very much for joining me, and hope you have a great day. And we'll pick up this story tomorrow and see if they actually win the battle over the Moabites. Yeah, they're going through Edom. All right, we'll see you later. Take care.